I'd just like to comment a couple of things, if I may, David.
Sure, wherever you want to go.
Regarding, listening to your broadcast as I was waiting to go on the air, and that this is a fundraiser, and I'm really happy to be here and be a part of it, because I also buy products from Alex Jones, and I recommend them highly. And the point being, it's a fundraiser, and you were talking about the latest repeal of the Johnson Act by Trump, and giving churches the right to make political statements. We're talking about Puerto Rico. We're talking about also everything's connected. That's our global economic process. All things are connected. And it comes back down to money and taxes. I am opposed. If people want to talk about, and again, the motto of the Trends Journal is think for yourself. So we don't push our beliefs on anyone, and we try to speak the truth as much as we possibly can with facts. I'm totally against these nonprofits. I mean, here's InfoWars putting out information that educates people, awakens them, and lets them think for themselves, as does the Trends Journal. We pay taxes. You have a fundraiser going on. And I don't mean this to be, believe in anything that you want. If you believe that Mary was a virgin, Moses came down with 10 commandments, Buddha was born on a lotus blossom, that's wonderful. But there are also a couple of hundred other religions out there with their own beliefs. If people want to talk about a separation of church and state, how about paying taxes? Why should you be getting a separate break? Because you're also using all the public services.
That's right. Of course, part of it is that they have set themselves up as corporations, and that puts a whole nother level of control that they have accepted. So I understand the whole argument against not becoming a 501c3 church. I've been involved with churches that did not go down that path, that did not want to put that bridle in their mouth. And so that's the other part of this. It's just that what I liked about this, Gerald, is the pattern that somebody is going to stand up and say, you can try to use the tax code as a weapon to silence people, because they had a long tradition that said we're not going to tax church property, whatever. So we can argue whether or not that should be there. But so it kind of evolved into that situation. But immediately in 1954, Lyndon Johnson said, I'm going to shut down political speech of people who oppose me. And of course, it was the churches who were actively involved in the American Revolution. There was a lot of people who spoke on that. And so he didn't want a certain kind of political speech. And that's what this was born from. It was born from that, and it was born from the control of the bureaucracy that can just do whatever they wish, and Congress just takes a back seat and abdicates its power to these bureaucracies who just rule, to the point that we have to have a president beg them, don't enforce this rule here. So
yeah, well, again, it's bigger than the church issue is the point that I'm making. It's all of these nonprofits. It's all of these universities that are paying these presidents and their coaches, millions of dollars, and they get a free ride, while we, the people, are paying, through our nose. And if we miss a dime on our tax returns, they may break down our door to get it. So I'm saying, going back to Puerto Rico and putting the whole process into place, it's this ripoff of nonprofits that are profiting richly, and they use all the public service. Hey, they got a problem, they call the police. Hey, they got a problem, the garbage men pick up their stuff, but we're paying for their crap. So what I'm saying against this whole nonprofit issue, it should be all done away with. So if you're going back to Puerto Rico, as we were talking about, and again, what it is, it's basically levels of incompetence in another example of a government, or whether it's city, state, or national, being run by incompetent people. So this Puerto Rico bubble has been building a long time. They kept taking on more and more debt, and you have a bunch of jerks running the show. Again, as I keep saying, it's the same people you hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. Do you think any of these people ever worked a day in their lives? No, they've been playing politics. They don't know what they're doing other than taking money that they call campaign contributions, that adults call bribes and payoffs, and they're screwing up the systems.
Yeah, it's interesting that we look at the pictures of Detroit in particular, and people say, this is this a bombed out area? Did they have a war here? No, they had decades of Democrat socialist policies, and you can see the result of that. And so the previous largest bankruptcy that we had with a local government was Detroit, $20 billion. So it's Democrat policies, welfare policies that we see here. And Gerald, you were talking about nonprofits and universities. I find it interesting that the objections that were being filed against Donald Trump saying we're going to have extreme vetting of people who are coming from 7 different countries. These happen to be countries that Obama was dropping bombs on, that he was going to war with. So presumably these were dangerous people, we were told, because we had to go to war with them. And yet we're going to open up our borders and let these people in and not vet them. And what they were saying was their biggest objection to this, they said, was it's going to have a massive impact on our universities because our universities get money for educating people coming here from other countries. I said to my wife, I said, how insane can their rationale be? The fact that we have to give in-state tuition subsidies to people from foreign countries, and we have to leave our borders open for the benefit of the universities that are just getting more and more expensive because of the subsidies. Every time you subsidize something, it gets less and less efficient. So that's the vicious cycle that we see, and they're even arguing that we've got to keep our borders open, even to countries that they say are dangerous enough that we have to, I don't think we have to go to war with these countries. But if they're saying that we have to go to war with them, then we ought to at least vet the people that we're dropping bombs on and getting angry at before we bring them into our country. But that's the insanity of this whole thing.
Well, again, you made a good point as well, is that, is people rallying around to reverse it. And that's the other thing that people keep saying, that, what can I do? I can't do anything. I don't have any power. And again, it's up to the people to change it. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate and tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men.
That's right.
By the way, that banging here, they're building they're redoing a bank next to us, and
there you go.
They're turning it into a boutique hotel. But anyway, going back.
Oh, that's an improvement. That's an improvement. They won't be ripping people off at the hotel, hopefully. So
going back to this, though, and talking about the whole tax structure, we should be doing away with these nonprofits. It's a ripoff. People start these things. Look at the executive pay in these nonprofits. Again, InfoWars, the Trends Journal, we're doing work that helps the population, but we don't go for the nonprofit ripoff. You have a fundraiser going on.
That's right.
So what I'm saying is...
And we try to sell products to people that are going to not only help fund our operation, but are going to give people the products that they need to live more healthy lives. It always bothers Alex, it bothers me, all of us who work here, it bothers us to see the government dumping fluoride into the water, or, the fact that they're careless about the lead that's in the water. And we don't want to see that happen. And so one of the first things that Alex started selling was water filters. And then they would accuse us of saying, oh, you're profiting off of fear. And it's like, well, look at what's going on with the lead everywhere. And it's not just Flint, Michigan. There are scores or hundreds of municipalities that fail just on lead, and that's not even talking about what they add in terms of fluoride. So it began with that, and then Alex started looking at, well, there's iodine deficiency because they don't have, they're not putting iodine supplementation into the salt as much as they used to anymore. So it just gradually moved from that, and so that's the model that we want to use to fund the operation here. And it's interesting when we're talking about the banks and how, they've got, we may have $20 trillion worth of debt here that the Office of Mismanagement and No Budget wants to take a look at this and doesn't think it's a problem, so we just have a continuing deficit resolution. But they can get away with it at the federal level because they just print money at the Federal Reserve, and they can't suspend reality in Puerto Rico or in Detroit. Eventually reality catches up to them and they turn into what we see in Detroit now.
Yes, and it's going to go nationwide is what we're saying.
Yes. Yes.
Whether it's Illinois, it's state after state, they're running into these problems. So, you know, I also like to comment and listening to you as well about Hillary Clinton and her coming out and making some of these statements. And again, playing the misogynist card as she has done so clearly, and she made it a point. I want to read to you. This is from, oh, by the way, and talking about how they talk about InfoWars as, you know, conspiracy theorists. How about calling what the Clintons and the Democrats are claiming that the Russians hacked into the DNC? How about calling that a conspiracy theory? Because not one shred of evidence has been provided to make that accusation the truth.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And they're basing this, even Comey, when questioned, said he hasn't seen any evidence of hacking. He's going on the word of the contractor that worked for the DNC. He's taking his word for it, CrowdStrike. So he says, yeah, CrowdStrike, who works for the DNC, said that it happened, so I'm basing it on that. He didn't do any investigation of that. He doesn't have any evidence of it. We know it's not there. And even if they found something like that, we now know, because of WikiLeaks, we now know that the government has the tools where they can make it look as if it's coming from any country that they want to. And of course, we were told by John McAfee long before that was revealed by WikiLeaks, he said, of course, they can mask themselves. They would never, in their right mind, they would never keep their job if they left their fingerprints all over everything every time they broke into somebody's information. So we knew that was happening as well. We broke that story a long time before it was actually revealed, but now we have the documents. People still won't believe that it's simply a conspiracy theory, as you point out.
Yes, but yet they're quick to point to others when we put out facts that you're a conspiracy theorist. While here we have the fake news media promoting this conspiracy theory as though it's fact. I want to read you a quote from Hillary from a few days ago when she made these statements. Quote, "Every day that goes by, we learn more about the unprecedented interference by a foreign power whose leader is not a member of my fan club. He certainly interfered in our election, and it is clear he interfered to hurt me and to help my opponent." Now, not one fact, and of course the audience cheers.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is this is a total conspiracy theory, not one piece of evidence provided, and yet they keep promoting it, and they'll attack others who put out facts that don't go along with their game. And
whenever we are accused, Gerald, whenever we're accused of a conspiracy theory, it's because we don't believe the government's official story. We say, well, they say this, but look, that doesn't make any sense, or this person didn't have the motive to do this, or whatever. We go through and we say, you know, we start to deconstruct that, and we say, and we give people reasons for that. As you pointed out, she gave absolutely no reason for any of that, no evidence for anything. Comey hasn't given us any evidence for anything either.
Evidence. Yeah. Everyone should understand that. There hasn't been one shred of specific evidence. This is what we believe. Oh, yeah, you believe that, huh? You also believe that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to, you know, we are the only magazine that had forecast back in May of 2016 that Donald Trump would win. And we said that it's, quote, the economy, stupid, that old Clinton phrase from back in 1992.
That's right. She would not focus on that. She wanted to focus on the fact that she was a woman. We all knew she was a woman. That didn't really help our economy or anything else. You nailed it back in May 2016.
So now now they're playing the misogynist card, and that any male that voted for Trump hates women. So here's for our Trends Journal. This is from fall of 2016. This is our recap. As evidenced by the polling data, the myth that reactionary white working class men elected Trump continues to be perpetuated by the prostitute media and promoted by the anti-Trump demonstrations that erupted following the election. In fact, Trump received the same number of white male votes as did Mitt Romney in 2012. And despite Hillary Clinton playing, quote, the first woman to be elected president gender card since she launched her campaign in the spring of 2015, you ready for this? She received 2 million fewer votes from women than Obama did in 2012. More importantly, just 30% of eligible women cast their ballots for Clinton compared to 47% who did not vote. Also, some 2 million black voters who cast ballots for Obama in 2012 did not cast ballots for Clinton in 2016. Overall, Clinton received about 10 million fewer votes than candidate Obama did when he first ran in 2008.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody to blame but herself. And I think it's interesting when we look at the French election, the fact that they are using the same narrative. The Russians are going to hack our elections by promoting certain stories and doing certain things. They're using that card, but they can't use the feminist card. But they will not talk about the fact that anybody should vote for Marine Le Pen because she's a woman. They want to push that back to the side. So it's kind of interesting to see the parallels there. And of course, Gerald, we had Macron come out and have his deplorables moment. He called Le Pen voters hateful cowards. So we see a lot of parallels there, but they will not go with the vote for me because I'm a woman, because it doesn't serve their purpose there. But they just hammered that incessantly. And that was the only thing that Hillary had going. You pointed that out, the fact that she got fewer women's votes, she got the same number of men's votes. And yet that magazine that came out, I think it was Newsweek that came out, certainly not Trends Journal. They thought that Hillary was going to win. You knew back in May that she wasn't going to win, but they thought that she was going to win, so they had the magazines printed up and delivered. And if you read that magazine when it came out, it was all about her being a woman, and it was her time, and it was time for women to be in the presidency, and on and on and on. Everything there was about her sex, nothing at all about what she planned to do.
Well, she's still staying on that.
Yeah,
she's still saying
can't get off that.
Yeah, she's still saying that that's the main focus of that's the major issue facing America. She mentioned in that talk is women's rights.
Yes. And I think David Axelrod has had, and a lot of Democrats have basically had enough of it. They've had enough of her losing. He said, you have to work pretty hard to lose to Donald Trump because they have a very low esteem of Donald Trump. But I think they also have an even lower esteem, as most of the Democrats who failed to even show up to vote for her had a low esteem of Hillary Clinton. And I think they're really starting to push back on her. They're very tired, as we are, of hearing about Russians and about women. That's all
here's her quote. Here's her quote. Women's rights is an unfinished business in the 21st century, Clinton said. There is no more important, larger issue that has to be addressed. That's her quote from a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
That's the only issue we have in this nation. And by the way, I'm sick and tired of people playing the gender card, the race card, and the creed card.
Yes.
Because we all know lovely Hillary Clinton, if only a woman was in charge, how they asked Secretary of State Clinton, how did you feel when you found out that Muammar Gaddafi was killed? Oh, killed? Yes, sodomized with knives. We came, we saw, he died. Oh, yeah, if only a woman was in charge. How about bringing back Margaret Thatcher? Where is Indira Gandhi when you need her? I'm sick of this. How about Condoleezza Rice, the next mushroom cloud? Yeah, a cloud of crap that started a war. If only a woman was in charge. Samantha Power with your bad attitude and I forgot Susan Rice, the three witches of Macbeth that started the Libyan war under Obama. I'm sick of this garbage of gender, race, creed, and color. It comes in good and bad in all of them. So save it. I don't want to hear another word about this women's rights is the most important issue. There are other issues in this country, and one of them is war. One of them is people can't make a living, and their families are breaking up. There's hardship everywhere, and this is the only issue, and this is what the Democratic Party's become. It's become a race, creed, and color party. It's no longer a party for the workers.
I agree. And, you know, I would add to that list of ruthless warmongering women. And of course, they always say, oh, you need to vote for a woman because we're going to be more compassionate. Was Madeleine Albright compassionate when she was asked about the 500,000 children who died, not because they started a war yet in Iraq, but because of sanctions? And she didn't deny that the children died. She just said it was worth it. It was worth it for her. Or Janet Reno. Janet Reno, who said we got to go burn the Waco compound down because of the children. Right? That was the, so let's remember they do it here domestically as well. They have absolutely no compassion. So don't tell me that these women in government have more compassion. Anybody that gets to a high level of government, we have to really, really watch them because it does turn them into monsters, whether they're men or women. They very quickly turn into cold, calculating, Machiavellian monsters who don't value anyone's lives.
And again, people could go on YouTube, put in Leslie Stahl, Madeleine Albright. She was the ambassador at the time. When that question that you brought up, 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5 were killed because of Bill Clinton's sanctions. And when she was asked, was the price worth it? She said, yes, it was. Oh, by a quick Madeleine Albright story. I was like a speaker on the QE2 at the time, and it was for high-level executives, marketing executives from around the world. Madeleine Albright was the leadoff speaker the first night. I was the next night. The ship went basically up and down the East Coast for 2 days. Madeleine Albright's there, dressed in red. She looked like the Queen of Tarts. Anyway, they gave her a 15-minute introduction. Madeleine Albright grew up in Czechoslovakia. She went to this school, that school, got honors in this and honors in that. The father was this, the mother was that. She did this, she did that. This thing went on and on and on. Anyway, the next day they introduced me. I'm the next keynote. Gerald Celente, the author of Trends 2000, Trend Tracking, Far Better Than Megatrends, Forecast This, Forecast That. It was a nice introduction. Then remember, this is a packed place. This is the QE2. And I said, thank you very much for that introduction. I said, but I feel a bit shortchanged after hearing Madeleine Albright's introduction yesterday. The crowd broke up into laughter. And then I said, what you also failed to mention is that I graduated PS 76 in the Bronx without honors. But anyway.
Well, you know, I don't think she has any honor if she's going to not even deny that she killed 500,000 children, but accept it and say it was worth it. I don't care how many honors she gets at these educational institutions or that get handed to her in Washington or at the UN. She has no honor. She has no honor. I mean, that's one of the things. We see all these bumper stickers. I used to say to my wife all the time, we'd see bumper stickers. I have a child who is an honor student at such and such a place. And I said, you know what? We homeschool our kids. And we homeschooled our kids not because we wanted them to be academic geniuses, but because we wanted them to be honorable people. And that was our priority. And when you have somebody like Madeleine Albright that can read off her accolades for 15 minutes and she has no honor whatsoever.
And the other thing too I want to mention is that what's going on. Oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders, all those liberals love. Yeah, he also supported those sanctions and supported all of Bill Clinton's. Bill Clinton was bombing Iraq 3 times a week by the end of his administration. People forget this. And Bernie Sanders was all in favor of that, as well as the sanctions. So when he says, I voted against the Iraq war, I voted against. Yeah, Bernie, you voted to support all the budgets of the military-industrial complex, and you voted for all of that as well. So anyway, And the other point that I'd like to make, and you bringing this all together with Clinton and what's going on, is that how upset the liberals are that Obama's not in anymore. And there's this pretense that everything was perfect over the last 8 years. And when you start this happens to me all the time because I'm just 15 minutes away from Woodstock, New York, the home of the quiche-eating grin, balsamic smile liberals. So I have a lot of friends up there. And they start talking about this, and I go on, hey, you know, Obama sent, 33,000 more troops into Afghanistan. He slaughtered over 4,000 people with drone strikes. He destroyed Libya in a war based on lies. They did nothing to us. Mm-hmm. Look what he's done in Syria, 500,000 innocent people dead. And you know what they did? They cut me off. I don't want to go into that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait
the left doesn't want to talk about war anymore.
Miss Obama. You're saying how much you miss him. I talk about the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, that robs us of habeas corpus rights, about doing away with the posse comitatus that allows the military now to come into our cities. They cut me off. They don't want to hear a fact. All they want to do is believe in their lie. And that's what's going on. But you made a very important point, David Knight, about how the religious organizations banded together and pushed back on the Johnson Act. And people feel as though they're helpless, and they're not. They're cowardly.
Yes.
And that's stopping the future.
That's right. That's right. And, if the liberals would give up on some of their partisanship, if they would talk about peace, and I know you were a big part of you had an organization, Occupy Peace, still do, besides Trends Journal. If they would talk about peace rather than just resettling refugees, it's like, let's stop the war and stop creating refugees. Hamdi Ulukaya with Chobani Yogurt says, well, when I give these refugees a job, they're no longer refugees. Well, if you give them peace, they're no longer refugees either. But you're not going to talk about that because you're part of the globalist establishment that wants this mass migration of people, that brings in subsidized labor for you, people who don't speak English, so you hire translators there so they can stay on the floor, and basically if they don't learn English, that's the only job they're going to get. But he gets subsidized labor from these people that he advocates for, that he brings in. If they would just have peace, if they would just stop the war, but it never occurs to the liberals, and of course, the conservatives aren't going to talk about it. They're neocons for the most part, so they're not going to talk about ending the wars, and the liberals don't talk about it because they love having the mass migration come in of all these refugees.
Well, you make a good point because we talk about it. No one wants to talk about what caused the problem. It couldn't be because you destroyed Libya and Gaddafi that had nothing to do with it. Couldn't be you had the longest war in American history going on in Afghanistan. That couldn't do it. No, they love getting their places bombed to smithereens like Iraq. But you're right. No one talks about the cause. And the other thing, too, with Trump, his new budget, and the Democrats bragging that the wall didn't go up. And Nancy Pelosi makes the statement that, how dishonorable or disgusting, words to that effect, not exactly those words, that a wall would be. And, okay, Miss Pelosi, I got an idea. Take off the front door of your house and put a sign in, welcome in anybody. We'll feed you, we'll educate you, we'll pay for you. You don't have to do anything. We're opening our doors for you, Pelosi. Oh, yeah, you can't get within 20 yards of Pelosi. She probably got security all around her. But that's different because it's a neo-feudal society.
That's
there
right.
Are different rules for the political nobility and the economic elite.
That's right.
And on the wall, by the way, Anthony Freda, of course, the brilliant illustrator who does work for you and us, he sent me an email of a friend of his that came out with a border wall that I think we should put up. It's all solar panels. It's a brilliant idea. It'll
Yeah.
pay for itself.
Self-funding wall. That's a great idea. Hey, let me take a quick break. I'm not going to go to a full commercial break, guys, here. I'm just going to tell people some of the specials because I want to get back to Gerald. We got started a little bit late. Gerald Celente, we're talking to with Trends Journal. Is Trends Journal Research, is that it, Gerald? Is that your website?
Trendsjournal.com or trendsresearch.com.
Okay, great. We're going to come back to Gerald in just a moment. We're not going to go to a full commercial break, CJ. Let's just tell people what some of the specials are here. We've got, and this is part of our 30-hour broadcast, and we really do appreciate you coming on, Gerald, with us to help us in this fundraiser that we've got going. 30% off Brain Force Plus, 20% off Secret 12. That's our vitamin B12 formulation. If you need a vitamin B12 supplement, and many of us do, you need to research that yourself. If you need it, you don't have to take a painful injection. You can just take this nice-tasting liquid formula, put it under your tongue, and it's an easy way to get the same effects that you would with a vitamin B12 injection. Also, 20% off Knockout, our natural sleep aid, as I mentioned before. Especially when I'm traveling, if I've got a change in schedule that we have here at work, I've got to go from doing late reports at night to an early morning report. I use Knockout to alter my sleep patterns. It's also, it's all natural, so it's a great way if you're having trouble sleeping for any other reason. Maybe you don't need to change your schedule, but you're just having trouble sleeping. It is a great, all-natural, very effective Knockout is a sleep aid. 20% off that, 20% off Winter Sun. That's our all-natural vitamin D3 supplement. 20% off Prostagard and other things like BioPCA, Biome Defense 25, that's 20% off. 20% off Living Defense. We have DNA Force back in stock. That is a very unique product that InfoWars has. Its most interesting ingredient is BioPQQ. It costs $30,000 per batch to do that. So when we run out of it, it's a bit, sometimes it's complicated, it's expensive to get that going again, but we put that in there because there are 175 clinical studies. It's unprecedented for an ingredient to have that many clinical studies. Most of these natural supplements, they don't bother to do clinical studies. But BioPQQ has 175 clinical studies. You can do your own research. You can read the reviews there. It's very effective in terms of protecting your DNA. The little telomeres, it's like your shoestring. It's got a cap on the end of it. You can predict the longevity of rats and even humans by looking at how long the telomeres are. That's little caps on the end of our DNA. As that gets shorter, and it naturally starts to get shorter, eventually when it disappears, your DNA starts to unravel in bad ways, and that causes all kinds of health issues that affect your longevity. So this supports the health of your telomeres, among other things that are in this. That is now back in stock. And also we have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, $9.95. That's 33% off retail. We want you to try that. It's very effective. It's probably, I think, the only toothpaste that you're going to find that has nano silver. No fluoride, but it has iodine and it has nano silver in it. Very effective at fighting bacteria, which fights gum disease, which also fights heart disease that can come from gum disease. So we really do appreciate your support of our operation. This is our 30-hour fundraiser. And let's go back to Gerald Celente. You can find all those specials at InfoWarsStore.com. Gerald, we were just talking, and you were talking about the wars, the unprecedented length of Afghanistan. I wonder if we had had a debate and we had said to the American people, we're going to go to Afghanistan. Here's the purpose. Here's how we define victory, rather than having George W. Bush say mission accomplished. It was never made clear to anybody what the end point was on that. I don't think there is an end point on it. We've had now generals say, I think we're going to be there 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't think they're ever going to leave Afghanistan. Do you?
No, well, unless we, the people, decide. And there's another point to this. Like you said, George W. Bush said, by the way, we broke apart his, before I go any further, you're talking about the products on that InfoWars has available. And as I said, I put my money where my mouth is. I use InfoWars products. And what I'm saying to people is you put your money where your mouth is. Because if you don't support people like InfoWars and other people putting out the facts, as opposed to those conspiracy theorists, such as the Clintons and the mainstream media, as they talk about Russia hacking into the DNC and other issues which they have no evidence of, it's really important to support this, because if you don't, you're going to hear less and less voices. And again, David, you made the point how when people unite around an issue, they could change the course.
Yes.
So going back to the war, and we, of course, launched OccupyPeace.us because it's only about us. And you're talking about Afghanistan and George Bush. We broke apart his speech 9 days after 9/11 that he gave to the people that got us into Afghanistan. And we said only a madman would speak these words, and only people dumbstruck with fear would believe them, and believe they did.
Yes.
What happened to the Constitution? Congress should be only voting to go to war. And that's
right.
long gone.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they always come back and they say, oh, we don't want Congress debating this because we don't want them to know what our plans are. There's a big difference between a strategy, which is to say, these are our objectives, this is how we define victory, and so forth and so on. Do you want to do this or not? And we have a vote on it. That's what the Constitution's for. That's what the people are supposed to be involved with, as well as our representatives. There's a big difference between that and a tactic, which does need to be kept secret, like where are we going to invade Europe? Is it going to be Normandy or is it going to be Calais? When are we going to do it? And so forth and so on. Once you decide you're going to do a war, you leave it to the president and to the generals to conduct the war, but not to decide whether they're going to go to war, not to decide whether they're ever going to end the war. That's the position that we're in now. It's absolutely insane.
It is insane, and it's anti-constitutional.
Yes.
Congress has not voted to go to war since World War II.
Yeah, and that was the last one we won.
And that's the last one we won.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's right.
And now what OccupyPeace.us says also is to close all the bases overseas, use the troops to secure our border, by the way, which we also recommended in Trends 2000. My book was an international bestseller back in 1996. And thirdly, besides forcing Congress to vote to go to war, have a referendum on each state ballot where we, the people, will tell our congressmen and women how to vote. Because we're the ones that pay for the war with our money and our lives.
Yes, yes, yes. Rich man's war, poor man's fight. You know, there was a story by CNS News that I covered yesterday afternoon as part of this broadcast. And they said, you know, everybody's saying there's no money for the border, but there is money for the border, just not the American-Mexico border. We have money in this 1,600-page bill. We have $1.5 billion for the border of Jordan. Why? Because they need to control terrorism, and they need to control their border for Egypt, for Afghanistan, for Pakistan, for Libya, on and on and on. All these countries are getting $1 to $1.5 billion, which was all anybody was asking for the border between the U.S. and Mexico. And we didn't get it. But for all these other countries, the money is there, between $1 and $1.5 billion for all these countries to control their border because they need to control terrorism and so forth. And that's what we get with our military budget. They protect everyone else but us. They don't protect us.
And that's why OccupyPeace.us, it's only about us, and we could change it. You know, you asked me earlier about some economic trends that we see. One of the ones, and you well know, we had been negative on the economy until Trump got elected. 5 days later, we did a 180 in our forecast. We said this market rally is real. It's going in a different direction. There are a lot of positives toward the economy, whether you agree or disagree with him, that are going to change where we're going. But we're also saying this isn't going to be a fast or big recovery. And again, we look globally. There's an indicator out there that people should consider if they're interested in economics to start watching very closely, and that's copper prices. Copper is a barometer of the global economy, and it just had its worst drop in 19 months because it goes back to China. China uses over 40% of the world's copper. And by the way, China's buying up the world, and people are missing on this one too. And when you talk about Trump and new deals, this is really needed to be done with China. Tencent, one of their companies now, is now the world's very much involved in technology, is now one of the 10th largest companies in the world, according to market value. So as we're looking, again, going back to copper and China, China has a huge bubble. They're trying to slow it down. So that's why copper prices are going down. And what they do is they call copper Dr. Copper, because copper is like a PhD. It shows you what is being used in transportation, in electronics, in home building, in commercial building. Copper is used through autos. And look at the auto sales, by the way, in the US. They're not doing so well. So copper is a very key indicator. Again, it's the PhD model of the economy. So when copper prices go down, there's an alert bell that goes off in our mind. So as we're looking at the US economy, we're looking at steady growth. And very important, tying back into, and again, we don't give investment advice. We had been saying this is not a good climate for gold. And the reason being Trump, going back to China. If you want to open up a company in China, you can't do it. You have to become a partner with somebody, and you can't be a full owner. Again, what China did is like what Japan did. When I was a kid, when you got a toy that was made in Japan, you throw it away because it was a piece of junk. But what they did is they got all our technology. And that's what China started as, producing low-quality product. And now they're going to be building automobiles and airplanes to now compete with the United States, because the deal is when you manufacture over there, because you can't import, your import prices are too high, you have to turn over all the technology. So you can't become a full owner of the company. You can become a 49% owner, but you have to turn over all the technology.
And of course, that's always been a part of the China price that you're talking about. It's not just the currency manipulation. That's an important part of it. But it's also, as you pointed out, stealing copyright stuff, demanding that you participate in that market, that hyper-protectionism. We're out of time, Gerald. We got to stop it. But people just heard a sample of what you can find at Trends Journal, focusing on key trends and getting that kind of analysis to see where the major trends are happening in our economy, like Gerald was just talking about with copper. Thank you so much for joining us, Gerald Celente, and you can find him at trendsjournal.com. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you very much, David, and thank you and Alex and the whole crew for all that you do.
Thank you so much for your support, Gerald. Really appreciate it. Thank you.